Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode. Actually, this episode will probably publish to the Superpower Quest, Tongues of Fire, and maybe other places. I'm just going to preface this. You might be seeing this and Levy Fam Creative, right? Yeah, that's the label. That's our record label, Levy Fam Creative in the house. And so today, I get to interview. Man, I've been waiting for this for so long. Josiah Smith, who is an author and college student. He's the author of a book that actually we have deeply enjoyed. The one that we're on is Jack Zulu and the Waylander's Key. I said that right, like the Waylander's Key,
Yes, sir.
which is hot fire for anybody out there. But anyway, Josiah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so stoked to be here.
And I forgot to introduce you by your most important characteristic. This man's a follower of Jesus and a lover of Jesus, and wants folks to know that. So, welcome to the show, man. We appreciate you so much, and we're doing this all a little loosey goosey. Typically y'all know I do one-on-ones, but I brought in my kids because my kids wanted to meet and they're cool. My kids are cool, as you can tell. They're cool. They say things. Jaden's shaking his head in the back,
Can.
and so Josiah, I want to introduce you to my kids. So I've got over here. I'll point at them all. So that's Jaden, Zakai, Levy.
Rude to point, Dad.
It's rude to point. It's rude to stab my finger up here.
Jaden, what's up, man?
And then over here, and so one thing about Jaden, you should know, he's his. Can I tell him? Can I tell him anything about you, buddy? Can I? He is a nurturer, a connector nurturer. So he's like a Samwise from Lord of the Rings, like just an incredible,
Mm,
loyal, like enthusiastic, jump in with you, dude.
that
And
is
also a writer. He's writing a couple different books right now.
that is so cool. I love Samwise so much, and it looks like you're a Denver Nuggets fan, which is also awesome. Jokic has been tearing it up these days.
It's to just make fun of my mom because oh shush, she's a Lakers fan. She
Yes.
loves Lakers.
Mama's a Lakers fan, and it's a big problem in our household. So, um, next is
She'll see the truth someday.
she will see the truth. Yes, I doubt it because she's a Laker girl in her blood. Next is Elia
What?
Grace Levy, and that's her right there. Whoa, that's hard to do.
Hi, Elia.
Um, and Elia is an organizer nurturer, so she's got this crazy mix between like being able to plan and structure and consistency, but then she has this nurturing where she just takes care of and protects people. She loves to bake. She loves to knit. Anything else you want him to know about you, baby?
I'm good. That's it.
She's good. That's it.
That's
And
awesome.
then I've got Amara Joy Levy right here.
Hi,
And
Mara.
Amara, she's the youngest. She's 9.
I am a dreamer leader, and I love adventure and dreaming and being creative in general.
And drawing.
Yeah,
Being creative.
she's an amazing artist. Amazing artist. Yeah, and she's got that kind of spark of creativity where her pieces are dope. So hey, that's the fam.
It's so nice to meet you guys. I have one. What type of stuff do you like to draw?
Mostly like horses and dragons and stuff.
That's so cool. I feel like horses are really hard to draw. I love to draw too, but I've never been able to quite figure out how to make them like look like a real horse.
Yeah, neither have I. So I like trace a bunch of times so I can
Mm,
like get the feel for it, and then I start drawing freehand, and it's really fun.
that's so cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, you can tell she's serious about her craft. She
Mm.
she practices it. So Josiah, what would you say about yourself? Like, as we're all introducing, what should they know about you? What else should they know about you and your
Mm.
artistic passions?
So I'm finishing up college right now. My major is multimedia communications, which I feel like is like definitely a part of my personality. I think communication is interesting, and I feel like there's a lot of different ways you can do that with like video production and like writing, journalism, anything like that. But as you guys probably know, to some degree, I like to write. I write books with my dad, and see what else. I love music. Like I play guitar and piano, and I actually teach music on the side.
Yeah.
Um, and That's something I'm pretty passionate about. So yeah, that's kind of my main like artistic passions, I would say.
Yeah, that's so cool. Oh, we got to introduce Tucker's
Okay.
not in here. No, we're not gonna do that, baby. We're not gonna do that. She actually is a deep animal lover also. So she
Great.
really wants you to meet our dog, Tucker, who is a Bernedoodle, and he's just
So cute.
full of joy and
That sounds
happiness.
awesome. My little sister Nora, she just turned 13. She's an animal lover too, but our family, most of us are allergic to like pet like cats, dogs, anything like that. And so she's longing for the day when she can have her own house and have a dog.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. So, yeah, the hypoallergenics can sometimes work with that, but it just
Yeah.
depends.
It's
Yeah.
hard. I think the allergies might have the hypoallergenic pets beat with my family anyway.
Oh, brutal. That's
Yeah.
rough. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Nora. You'll get your chance. You'll get your time to
Yeah.
snuggle up on some puppies or something.
Her day will come.
Yep. So, a couple questions for you. The first one's going to come from Jaden. So, Jaden, you go ahead and ask whatever you want to Mr. Josiah.
All right. So it sounds like you have a lot of passions. Was there ever a time in your life where it felt like you couldn't do it, or you just felt like it was like a stop?
Mm.
Yep.
Like with like stuff that I was passionate about, like it feels like it's like not working or not like going. Yeah, man, a lot. I feel like I think one thing that has been cool, like so like my dad, he's a writer and I think a lot of people don't really think of like writing or like creative stuff as like a career path that's like you could make money off of or like it's viable, you know. But having a dad that's an author, I think eliminated a lot of those things. So it always kind of felt like writing like was a possibility. But to answer your question, like a time in my life where I felt uh like things like weren't going or they were at a stop. I would say it's like probably a lot of little moments more than one like big moment, and who knows, like maybe that'll come as in terms of like something creative, like a big setback or a big something that feels like a failure. But I would say more than that is like it's just, I mean, you're a writer, man, you know this, like it's hard to like make yourself write every day and to like be committed to this and like make it good kind of. So I would say it's less of like a big moment where things aren't working and more of like every day kind of a battle to like, you know, start up the creative engine. I hope that answers your question well. I know that's like not a direct answer to what you said, but I honestly can't think of a big moment. It's more like a day-to-day thing for me.
And we might get into this a little bit more, but how do you get unstuck? Because as a writer, I also know it's, you know, you're not always feeling it, right? It's
Yeah.
not always inspiration. And if you're only going to write when there's inspiration, you're actually not going to be a writer, right?
Right, right. I would say there's like a lot of ways. A lot of people have like better wisdom on this than I do, but one is like just like habits are super super powerful, and so like if you can kind of meet your if you have like a word count you want to get to every day, like you know, writing 500 words is like better than writing no words, even if they're not like perfect or not what you want them to be. And so hand in hand with that, I would say like editing is your friend. And so if you write a draft that's like not so good at the beginning, I would say continuing like to habitually write as opposed to like just writing when, you know, you feel inspired or you feel like creative is like you can always fix things on the back end. I
Yes.
think getting them down on paper is important. So that's probably the best like writer's block advice that I would have.
So good, man. I'm going to pass you. So, Elia, you get to ask your question next.
So I know that you like to write books. But what is your favorite book that you've read?
Mm, that's a great question. My favorite book, I always kind of end up narrowing it down to two answers. One of them is this old book called The Count of Monte Cristo. If you've heard of that, it's like it's by the same guy who wrote the Three Musketeers. So it's this
Yep.
like sort of swashbuckling 19th century like Napoleonic era adventure, and I just think it's beautiful. It's fascinating. It's super super long, and I read it when I was like 12 or something, so it kind of just stuck with me. And then the other answer is a book called Ender's Game,
Come
which
on, buddy.
have you guys read that?
Not all of us. Not all of us. Yeah.
It's a good one. Like I feel like it hits you at a certain age. I don't know what that age would be, but like once you reach it, it's super super good. I love that book. I could talk for hours about it. Elliot, what's your favorite book, or do you have a favorite book?
very much like to read.
Or like tell me just like one or two that you like, you know?
Really like. I'm gonna tell you a series. It's called The Vanderbakers that I have read like probably the whole series. I've probably read like 5 times.
I read the first one of that. My mom, when I was in middle school, she read that to us, like aloud as a family. It's like the family and they got the pets and they live in the
Yeah.
brownstone, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's great. I love that book.
And then another one called The Sweetest Sound.
Yep.
I really like that.
What's it called? Can you say it one more time?
The Sweetest Sound.
The Sweetest Sound. That sounds cool. I haven't heard of that.
But those are probably my top 2.
That's awesome. I love that. I'll have to check out The Sweetest Sound.
Yeah, that one. I have not read it, but I've heard her talk about it, and it sounds just breathtaking, like beautiful. She likes the real stuff, like the real, people struggling with trauma and getting through trauma. And it's just she's got that nurturing spirit, so she likes that.
That's so cool, Elia.
All right, so
Have you always wanted to be a writer since you were ever since you knew what writing was? Or-
That's a great question. No, I haven't, but I think like anything like that, you kind of like grow into it and kind of, like grow into the kind of like things that you care about creatively and discover them along the way. Funny enough, considering what we just talked about, when I was like your age and like a little bit older too, like all I wanted was to be an artist. Like I wanted to be a book illustrator, and I drew all the time. And that was like, I was seriously passionate about that for most of like elementary and middle school. And I don't really know what caused that to like change directions, but I think I just got interested in other creative things too, and like I started being more interested in like storytelling, because ever since I was little, I would like draw these books and I would like staple them together and like with illustrations and stuff. Do you do that too?
Yeah.
That's so cool. It's so fun because you just get to like create your own little world and your own narrative and a storyline and everything. So I would like do that, and I think I kind of eventually realized that writing is a good way to kind of like pool all those creative passions together. So who knows? Maybe you'll be a writer someday too.
Writing a book right now, actually.
That's so cool.
Yes.
It's not
That
like
is so awesome.
It's been really cool to watch her do that, both illustrate and write. And
Oh man, that's a double threat right there.
yeah.
it's called To Love a Dragon.
To love a dragon. That's cool. Can you give me like a sneak peek or like what's it about?
Yeah, it's about this girl named Ashley, and she's like, she did have a family, but she never like knew her family, so she like lives on the streets, and she just steals all the time. And then
Okay.
suddenly, like, she built so she stole like some wood from a like sale at somebody's garage, and then she like kind of built a house in the trees. So,
Oh.
and then one day she finds like something that looks like just a really circular piece of obsidian, like really big. And then the next day she touches it and it like explodes her whole tree house. And it was actually an egg, and a dragon hatched out of it. She named him Obsidian, and then they like have to go and fight this other dragon who's trying to take over the world, and he's called Hyperion. And that's all I've got to so far.
That is so cool. That sounds sick. And like just from your description, like it sounds so cool that you're like illustrating that too, because it sounds like there's so many cool like images and like scenes to kind of like, show people with your artwork.
Yeah, I've drawn so much of it already. I can't
That's
stop
awesome.
drawing it.
Yes, you.
And that is, we talk about superpowers, part of like just what's been in her since she was born is this deep love for animals and a way with animals. She actually has a way with animals. So animals like come to her and they let her touch them, and then we have to yell and say, no, don't touch that. And,
Once there was this dog that, when I was like a couple weeks old, there was this
Months.
dog that, no, a couple weeks.
months or weeks, whatever.
Yeah, like a month or something. And then literally there was this dog that everybody else was scared of. And then as soon as my mom put me on the floor, I just started crawling right towards it.
Yeah, she went straight
No
at it.
way.
She's
That's so
always
cool.
been
You've
that
been
way
like an animal lover since day one.
since she was born. Yeah.
Wow.
And so now, and then the writing and the creativity. So she puts that love for animals and then the creativity together.
I draw animals.
Yeah,
So
it's
cool.
just like this super threat. So anyway, the whole family's creative. We all we are our company name, if you want to call it that, our organization is Levy Fam Creative, and
Mm,
we're just about spreading, investing in the creativity of these ones, and then getting our creativity of our family out into the world. So um,
that's
so
so cool.
anyway, thank you for spending time with my crew, and
For
thank you
sure.
guys.
Bring Tucker in just real quick, please.
No, because we're actually going to get on with the interview. We're over time already, so y'all have to head on out, and then we're going to continue the interview.
Thank you.
Hey, it was so nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you too.
You guys take care.
Bye, dude. That was so cool. That was so cool, man. Thank you, thank you. You got away with kids.
Oh my gosh, yeah, dude. Like, thanks for like bringing him into the interview. It's so cool. I've never done a podcast before and gotten to meet the host's family, so that's so sick.
Yeah, I mean, seeing that, it makes me want to do it more actually,
Mm,
and get them in, because I didn't know how it was going to go. I didn't know if they were
yeah,
going to kind of freeze up and lock up, or if they were going to do that. But
no, they seem super like uh interested and like ask great questions, and yeah, that's so, they seem like really cool people.
yeah, dude. Well, so I know you must have a creative family as well. I mean, I sense that, right? Like we'll get into the collaboration with your dad, SD Smith, goes by Sam, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
And the book that you wrote with him. But can you tell me a little bit about your family and creative origins within your family? Because you talked a little bit about this, but I'd like to hear with respect to the family.
Yeah, for sure. Like I so my dad wasn't always like a full-time writer. He had a few different jobs as I grew up, but well, let me jump back for a second. I have a family of six people. So my mom, my dad, and then I have three siblings. Um, I am the second oldest. I have an older sister and then a younger brother and a younger sister. And so dad had several different jobs growing up, but I always like remember him writing like as a, whether it was a hobby or eventually kind of full time in that capacity. So creativity has always felt like it's been an option and not necessarily like a pressure or a requirement, but it's definitely always been a part of my family and our family culture. And so, yeah, I guess I kind of came by whatever creativity I have pretty naturally. And the rest of my family, they're into their own things. Like my sister likes to write. My older sister, she's a good writer, and my actually the others in the family, they tend to be creative in other ways that aren't necessarily as typically like artsy. Like my little brother, he's a sophomore in high school, and he's like a really like a tremendously good athlete.
Yeah,
He plays soccer super well, and my little sister, she's a dancer. Like she loves ballet and like different types of dance. And then my mom, she's creative in like a way of like homemaking. Like that's what she's passionate about, and she's just like she's a really good mother. And she it's funny, all of this morning we were just working out in the garden, getting it ready for spring and summer. She's a big like gardener. She grows plants and vegetables and flowers, and so yeah, I think that's kind of the general
yeah,
like overview of my family, and they're all creative people in different ways.
yeah, yeah. So how did your folks? Because I sense, and I mean, I sense thriving. That's what I sense, right? I
Mm,
sense thriving. Even you, kind of asked you one of your big dreams, and your big dream is to be a good husband and a good father.
mm,
Well, having that dream will tend to come from a person who, has experienced that or seen that, and so I'm just interested to know a little bit more about your, um, how your folks invested in or facilitated the journey for you all, and the passions that you have.
mm. That's a good question. I think my parents, were really, um, I think their relationship really like complemented, their personalities complemented each other very
Yeah.
well. I think as any like successful couple does. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of those like complementary features of like how God made them to be, those were kind of like expressed to us growing up as children. And that's like that feels really nebulous to say. They were like they
Yeah.
emphasized like we did like family Bible studies growing up, and I
Yeah.
would hear like the story of scripture from a young age. That's kind of why like not to get into the nitty gritty too early on in the podcast, but like often when people are like sharing testimonies and it comes time for me to like sort of share mine, I struggle a little bit because I feel like my testimony is like in my walk with the Lord has been very like sort of gradual, and like I feel like I've always had a sense of like faith and sort of understanding the relationship that God has with me. And so all that to say, I think um my parents just like I feel like growing up was kind of like a sandbox. Like I had a lot of different opportunities to do creative things. It
Yeah.
felt like the desires, I had to like be creative were in me, from them and from God. And then they kind of, they gave me the pencils and paper to draw with.
Yeah. It's so important, man. Yeah, it's and I say this, and I hope I'm not overspeaking, but my sense of you, even just before we got on camera and getting to know you a little bit, and through our interactions in email, I get the sense of a person you're comfortable in your own skin, you're comfortable with who you are. Um, there's a health that's evident in the way you interact with other people. I can just say from the outside, and
Mm,
and usually when I hear that, I'm like, okay, that could be a really healthy family. That could be
mm,
part of, right, like coming up in a healthy family. So anyway, that's part of what draws me to your movement. Even that's part of what drew me. I'm reading reading the Green Ember, and then we're reading Jack Zulu, and
mm,
you can tell by even what comes out, the art that comes out, like, okay, there's thinking, feeling, integrity people
mm,
here.
mm.
That's how you come across.
Well,
So
thank you, man. I really appreciate that. I hope to come across like that, and all that stuff is like we don't we don't have anything that hasn't been given to us, so that all feels like a gift. That kind of you know, being well adjusted or like well raised or whatever. Like it feels like a big gift. So
yeah,
yeah.
it's very cool, man. So where do we go next? So I think I want to dig in with you a little bit more. And
Mm,
so like in these interviews, I do tend to like to really want to give people a sense for the person and for the heart of the person. I think each person is a treasure. I truly believe that. So my calling really is I'm a connector. I'm a connector dreamer in the Superpower Quest. And for those who don't know, Josiah actually took my Superpower Quest survey as well. Uh, which is about your design, your unique design, and kind of which kind of feeds into your calling. A part of my calling is really I connect with people. I just
mm,
love people, and I do. I just genuinely love people, and I've never met a boring person because if you ask the right questions, you find the treasure that's
mm,
inside, and you find the pain, and you find the joy, and you find what makes them tick, and you find the dreams, and that's just every person has that. Every person has these things, and so I just want to learn more about you, and so let's start with why you create. Let's even start with that,
mm,
right? Like you create, and you've created some beautiful things. I can attest to that. My family's enjoyed the book. That we've only the first, but I'm sure we'll enjoy the other ones too.
mm.
Um, why do you create? Where does it come from?
Mm. That's a really good question. I think probably the easiest and the truest answer that I could give to that is that I think everybody in their own capacity creates because they have been created, and
Yeah,
that's for at least I would say I believe that we create because we want to be like our dad, and he's
yeah,
the greatest kind of creator that that is, and I think like we are imitating that whenever we create art or or like architecture or food or like people. Like I think there's just a lot of like, and I think J.R.R. Tolkien he calls that I could be mistaken about who coined this term, but somebody, I think it was Tolkien, said that we are sub creators, and
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool like perspective on like artwork and just anything that you do that sort of is like generative. And so like for me particularly, I just have felt that and like a capacity to some degree and like a calling to do that through like making things that are beautiful and things that kind of, you know, as much as I like have been able to, and I'm still like learning to do this and to like develop my my craftsmanship
Yeah.
with anything creative. But um in Ecclesiastes, the author of Ecclesiastes says that God has set eternity in our hearts, and I think that's kind of like a um, that's in my head a lot, and I think about that a lot, and I think like everybody kind of has this this desire, this longing for you know, rightness and wholeness and things to be like restored. You know, whether you're like a believer in Jesus or not, I think everybody feels that kind of
Yeah.
that eternity in your heart, and so. Again, I'm a big like I'm a big picture guy. I tend to
Yeah.
answer in like pretty like
Yeah.
nebulous ways sometimes,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
apologize for my lack of clarity. But
No.
that's my long-winded response to that.
Oh, I love it, man. Yeah, and in answer to that, like I think that's a beautiful answer. Really, what I'm asking for is for you to answer from who you are. And if you're big picture, then answer me big picture, man, and we'll you know, I'm a big picture guy too. And I actually struggle to get down the funnel into planning and execution.
Same.
It's hard for me. Big dreams and idea generation all day.
Mm. It's hard to get. It's as like a pretty like type B, like go with the flow person. It's like hard to kind of get down to get down to business, you know. But that's something I'm trying to grow in.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to learn some degree of that in order to be effective in the world. You know,
Mm,
for a long time, I really thought there was just something wrong with me because, again, I'm a connector dreamer. So I'm at the
sure.
top of the funnel. I'm relationships and vision,
Mm,
dreams and conversations and hanging out with people. And I always struggle
yeah.
with the plans and I always struggle with the execution. I thought, oh, something's wrong with me. And then come to
Mm.
find out, no, that's my superpower is just up here.
Yeah,
Right.
that's so interesting. And tell me about the superpower sort of terminology that you're using, because I find it super fascinating. Is this something that you've come up with, or is this like from an outside like source, or tell me about that?
So I wrote a book called The Superpower Quest,
Mm,
which is the
okay.
first book that I published. I published it about 10 months ago, so a
Oh
little
wow,
under a year.
congrats.
And the kids helped me. The kids helped me with it actually quite a bit, uh,
Awesome.
and helped me come. The framework was just in me, but I guess without going too deep into my origin story, I did grow up feeling like something was wrong with me and that I didn't fit the mold of what a man should be,
Mm,
and that I was just missing pieces and I was a disappointment, right?
sure.
And that was deeply instilled in me.
Mm,
And through a process of time and providence and grace and really sweet people in my life, um, I began to realize that I wasn't just broken, but that I was actually intentionally designed,
mm,
right? And uh, and so then I encountered my first personality assessment, which was lion, otter, beaver, golden retriever. I don't know if you've taken any personality assessments, but I love a good personality assessment.
mm,
Like, have you heard of like Enneagram or
mhm.
Myers Briggs? Yeah, those
Yeah,
kinds of
my
things.
mom's a big Enneagram
Yeah,
gal.
yeah. And so the one I took was very simple, but it was like this aha moment that you
Mm,
could there could be different types of people with different types of strengths,
sure.
and it gave me the beginnings of some language. And so that all converted into calling and mission, right?
Mm,
So, you know, I began to conceive of my own way of doing it, which was, you know, my love of superheroes and comic books and the hero's journey,
mm,
and then put that all together with a personality assessment to create a discovery process. And so I do use that language a lot.
yeah.
And with my kids, they use that, like that's part of how they've named their design. So that's part of how, you know, you see my kids, they're kids who I think have a great deal of self-awareness, more than most children have.
Mm,
And I'd say they're more comfortable with their design because when you're their age, the world really tries to make you compare,
yeah.
right? And usually to your detriment. It's you're comparing yourself down from other people that you see that are cooler than you. And I found the way to combat that is to give them language for their own design and how they're built,
Yeah.
and to learn to love it, right?
Mm.
Because you're fearfully and wonderfully made. So like like you're on purpose, not on accident.
Yeah. That is so special. I love that. I think that's a really powerful tool to kind of like fight the lies that we get told, by ourselves and by, the I guess really like the world, the flesh, and the devil, So that's a really like that's really cool work that you're doing.
Thank you, man. Yeah, thanks for asking, and thanks for taking the survey. It was such a joy to just interact with your answers and your dreams and your design. And
Mm.
is it right if I share something from it?
Sure,
Uh,
certainly.
so Josiah is a dreamer leader, which is dreamer is that big picture creative person, head in the clouds, you might say, ideas,
Hmm.
concepts. And then the leader is actually the person who can galvanize a group of people, and help people all understand their roles and help people be accountable to their roles and bring clarity to groups, to cause things to happen in groups,
Mm.
right? There's like a relational component to groups, which is more the connector. And then there's like a progress, like enablement towards action, which is more the leader. And so it's a
So
super cool
interesting.
combo.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's like I usually feel a little bit like bad about those like personality tests because I never feel like I quite like I'm 19. Like, I don't know that I've necessarily, like, my brain isn't fully, like, fully
Yeah.
formed yet. So I still have some growing to do and still have some, like, understanding to reach as far as,
Yep.
like, who I am and who I'm becoming. And I think everybody does to some degree. But I do think it's really cool to kind of at least, like, try and, I don't want to say, like, put yourself in a box, but, like, label yourself so that you are further able to understand, like, what your
Yeah.
strengths are.
Yeah. If you can name it, that's the thing. Like if you can name it, then you can start to press into it, right?
Mm.
So I
Sure.
know that I'm a connector dreamer. Um, the funnel actually goes down to like your superpower statement. So I know that my actual superpower statement is authentic connection for mutual progress.
Mm.
That's like razor sharp now,
Yeah.
right? If it has to
Like
do with
3:12.
authentic connection for mutual progress, I'm
Yeah.
winning when I'm doing that,
Mm.
because it's effortless for me and it's
Yeah.
joy for me and it's effective for other people.
Mm. I love that. How have you like with this like the comfort and like the guidance that you found um in these superpowers, how have you balanced the idea of like growing into who
Yeah.
you are and who you want to
Yeah.
be and like because I think for a lot of people or at least for some people that I've known thinking about like the Enneagram some people will including like myself I've
Yeah.
struggled with this too but like you find yourself in this box of like oh I am this way and like these are the struggles these are the pitfalls of this type of person I'll never get past that I'll that's my crutch for the rest of my life how are you like interacting with that in terms of like not define how do
Yeah.
you define yourself without limiting yourself?
Dude, I love it, bro. It's such a good question. It's such a
Mm.
good question. So I think that there's a diagram that and this is new. This is since the book,
Mm.
but it's like kind of a Venn diagram with three circles. And so one circle is your design, and that would be like the realm of the superpower quest.
Yeah.
And then one circle is your experience, right? And by experience, I mean your experiences, right? Those also contribute to who you are and what you're doing in the world.
Yeah.
And then the third is your identity, your actual identity, which I think your identity is actually deeper than your design. Your
Mm.
design speaks to your identity, but your identity is like, who are you beneath all appearances,
Mm.
right? Like, who are you fundamentally? And then in the middle of those is what I think is your calling. So your calling is the sum total of your experience, your design, and your identity,
Mm.
right? And so I think that is kind of how I would address that. Now, the book talks a lot about kind of not using design as an excuse
Yeah.
right? Because everybody has all of the hero types. So everybody, I'm not strong in the leader like you are, but I have to have some of it because there's times when I have to do that. And everybody has to do all of these things. So it's not an excuse to say I can never do those things. But what it is intended to be is to push you in the direction of being okay with your weaknesses. Like it's okay to have some weaknesses.
Sure.
It's okay that I'm not a great planner. I'm not. And I can spend all my life trying to be a better planner and it would suck for me. And it would suck for everybody else because I'll never be a great planner.
Sure.
Or I can walk more in the flow, the current of my design, which I'm finding is going to get you further down the stream. Right. And so I don't know if I answered your, that maybe came at it from a couple different angles, but that's.
No, you're speaking my language, man. I totally get it. It sounds like you're saying like, you know, not shying away from the sort of like responsibilities that life throws at you and like using, you know, your your identity equipment almost to kind of deal with what life throws at you, but also pressing toward the kind of goal of like who you like your true nature and like what how you've been created.
Right. Honor your design, right? Like honor. That's how we honor the design.
Yeah. That's so cool.
I mean, one of my favorite scriptures, John 15, by this my Father is glorified that you bear much fruit. And so prove to be my disciples. Like, can you imagine your Father in heaven is like, I get delight when you bear fruit.
Yeah.
That makes me happy, right?
Right.
That makes God happy when we bear fruit. So he created you a certain kind of tree to bear a certain kind of fruit, and he just wants a lot of that fruit. So to me, that's like open season, you know?
That's so good.
Yeah, man. So let me put it back to you. So what draws you to awe specifically? Like when do you feel awe? Because I think that informs our art.
When do I feel awe? That's also an excellent question. I need to think about it for a second.
Take your time, man.
Honestly, I have pretty like basic answers for this. I think I tend to be pretty like typical. Like I love like it's funny we were talking about like outdoor stuff before you hit record, but I think it was before you hit record. I don't remember. But well, what's the word you used? You said awe. I'm like brought to a place of awe often by like nature, and I feel like recharged, and I feel like oriented by being outside. I just love like the sky. I love seeing the sky. I feel like I'm often like that is like a thing that I feel is awesome. And also music has always been like a thing that really like, moves me. And honestly, like movies, I'm a big like movie guy, and so like when I watch like one of my favorite movies, I'll often feel like a sense of awe and like inspiration, like thankfulness for just like God's creation and his glory and his beauty. And but I would say like the biggest thing is just like the work of Jesus, man. Like he just like his conquering death and like giving us like new life and sort of the work that Christ is doing and like the sort of process of sanctification. I guess like the walk of like being a Christian, it often brings me to tears, brings me to awe, all that stuff. So yeah.
Oh, dude, you're getting into the good stuff, man. Like the deep stuff. Something I've been meditating on and thinking on for a while is the idea of being versus doing. Being versus doing, because I do think that in my religious upbringing, there was definitely more of an emphasis on doing the right things, which I think often it's good to do the right things, but often we shortcut transformation. Or try to replace transformation by doing all the right things. Right? But you can do all the right things and not be right on the inside. That's harder.
Yeah. I totally hear where you're coming from with that. And I tend to be like a conscientious kind of guy that that struggles with that too, like a works righteousness kind of
Yeah.
wrestling with that, and often it is very like good for me just to kind of dwell in uh like what like the the object of my faith, not the works of my faith. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I totally hear where you're coming from with that.
Yeah. That's why I love that part of your answer, which is some of the awe is that just internal
Mm,
beholding, the,
sure.
the beholding and the experiential stuff. It's funny
Yeah.
because the other day, um, I was just sitting in my quiet time, and I was just thankful. Like I was actually thankful in my heart. And there's a switch that turned on in my brain that was like, oh, you better go tell God you're thankful, right? You better go
Mm,
tell him. You better go articulate it, because kind of like we tell when your parents, if somebody gives your kids candy, you tell your kids, okay, go tell them thank you.
mhm.
Got to go say thank you. You
Yeah,
got to say the words. We're not as concerned about like them actually being grateful. We're
sure.
concerned about them going and saying, because it embarrasses us if they don't, because then they
Mm.
think we have, and I just think we have a little bit of that mechanism inside of us
Yeah,
sometimes.
and that's so good. Like, and like what a gift to feel thankful. Like that's like
Yeah.
I,
Yes.
and what I've found is like sometimes, it's like we were talking about with the writing thing. I think sometimes developing like habits you can almost like like Pavlov dog yourself into feeling thankful, because like, you know, sometimes by saying,
Yep.
thank you God for this, you can kind of compel yourself to feel that, or like grow in those feelings too. But
Yep.
like what a gift it is to feel that way, like unprompted, or
Yeah.
prompted not by yourself.
Yes. Yeah. In that craft, like there's certainly disciplines of the craft, right? Even if we're talking about faith,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
disciplines. Um, I just think the pendulum can swing really easy
Mm,
one way or the other, right? Like to where,
yeah.
the Pharisees had the Torah memorized word for word, you
Hmm.
know, and they knew it all.
Right.
They knew how to do all the things. And
Mm,
and then Jesus comes and they're like, who is this guy? We don't like him.
sure. Yeah, yeah. He's like
you
this
know?
guy who wants like my heart,
Yeah.
not my words or my actions. He wants me, in my entirety.
Yes. He wants your heart. Yeah, man.
That's so cool.
Um, so beautiful, man. Okay. So, and I don't find your answer, it's interesting. I don't find your answers to be basic in any sense, man.
Mm,
I think, you're a remarkable young man.
mm.
Um, so,
Thank
so
you.
you posted the other day on Instagram. I saw you this kind of you just there was like this pan. You were maybe driving, but it was like this
Mm.
pan of the sunrise or the sunset. I can't remember if it was sunrise or sunset. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
remember that. I think I
yeah.
probably was uh, driving a little bit unsafely, because I would imagine if I was filming while I was driving. Maybe I was riding with somebody. I don't remember. But yeah, there was this beautiful sunset. There's this place, just as you get off the highway and you drive out to my family's house, um, in the winter time. I don't like winter at all. I hate it.
Yeah,
But in the wintertime, one thing that is beautiful about where I live is the leaves are off the trees, and so in the summertime when everything's full, you can't see through because the
yeah,
leaves are kind of blocking your view. But when all the leaves are off the trees, it provides like a gap for you to see across, like through these sort of West Virginia like little mountains, like these big hills in West Virginia,
yeah,
and you can just see for miles and miles. And it's like every night, or every evening driving home, you know, if I time my commute right, getting back from school, there's just a glorious sunset out that way. So I thought it was particularly beautiful that day, and wanted to capture that.
yeah, yeah. I loved it, man. And it told me something about you, right? Like
Mm,
it's funny because I saw that and I was like, oh, this question. I already know the answer to this question to some degree because he took the time to do that, right?
mm,
To just soak in the beauty of
yeah,
it. Um, so can we talk a little bit about your collaboration? So your book, right, or your series of books,
yeah,
um, Jack Zulu, um, excellent book. My family does read like we have seasons where we do like we just listen to books as a family as an evening activity. And so we did Jack Zulu for a while, and if you could have been here, I think you would have been very happy to hear the feedback and the
mm,
way that the kids were really engage with the characters. Benny is a favorite.
Hmm.
Benny's for sure. A
He is a
big,
fan favorite. That's
yeah,
awesome.
he's a fan favorite. But can you tell me a little bit about the origin of the book and working with your dad on that and all of it?
Yeah, for sure. And thank you so much, like for it feels so complimentary the way that you're talking about it. I'm glad that like you guys were able to enjoy that as a family. When I was, I think like 12 or 13, I had kind of like a classic, like, like homeschool, like nerdy experience of like getting this like inspiration in like middle school and being like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna like you hear about like these young authors like the guy, I can't remember his name, but the guy who wrote Aragon, the
Yeah,
Dragon series, he
yeah,
was super young when he wrote,
yep.
and I would hear these stories of like, oh, I want to do that, I want to be this like whiz kid and like craft this world, and like to a certain degree, like I kind of did it like a little bit. So I like when I was 12 or 13, I had this big idea for this world, like the Wayland, and it would be like this. I used to call it like a fantastic airport terminal where like different worlds kind of collide and there's portals and keys and everything.
That's
Um,
so cool.
and out of that came just like the Jack Zulu story, and I at the time was really fascinated by like the 1980s, like that decade in American American history. There was like when I was in middle school, that was like a big like thing. It was like this 80s nostalgia for like kids
Yeah,
my age. I think
yeah.
sort of inspired by like probably like shows like Stranger Things and like this
I was gonna ask.
resurgence of this 80s like horror and like sci-fi nostalgia type of thing. And so I was like, I want to do that. I want to like do like write something in that tradition, and like a lot of my favorite stories are just from that era. Like I love like Star Wars and Indiana Jones and like E.T. I love like stuff like that, sort of this like popular media from that time period. And so all that to say, that kind of like snowballed into this Jack Zulu world that I ended up writing as a TV show. I wrote like some episode like screenplays and this big treatment for like this sort of overarching like series narrative and all this stuff. Again, like super nerdy and like probably at the time not super good like in terms of craftsmanship, but I think I grew a lot as I developed this story, and so it sort of like it grew in its quality as I grew, and I was like putting in like the work per se at the
Hmm.
time. I was like, people talk about like you're getting your 10,000 hours of something, and so that was like probably didn't come close to 10,000 hours, but I spent a lot of time in that world,
Yeah,
imagining it and everything, and so eventually, my dad, he's a writer, and I was like, oh, I'll share this with him. I'll see what he thinks, and I remember like sending him this whole like outline for a season of this show, and he was just like massively encouraging, and he was like honest and had great feedback for it, but was also like just like this is really good. You should keep on working on it, and so I did, and I think I had this really like big picture like vision for it and wanted it to be like this like big budget TV series. And eventually, my dad, he's written many Green Ember books at this time, and he told me the best way to actually get this like made as you see it in your head, like as this high concept TV show, is to write it as a novel first, because if you think about like these big media franchises, you have like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, or not Star Wars, that's a bad example, but like the Chronicles of Narnia,
yeah,
anything like that. It's easier to pitch a studio and say, hey, I wrote this book and it sold 1 million copies. There's an audience for this. Will you look at my screenplay or whatever, than it is to come to a studio and be like, oh, I have this idea for a fantasy show. Like nobody's really going to sort of pay attention to that unless you've spent some time building an audience. And so all that
yeah.
to say, this is like the longest I've ever told this story. It's
So good.
not terribly interesting, but it did
Keep it.
develop in a
Stop
certain
it. Stop it. Just keep it coming, buddy.
way. So anyway, Dad said, like, can I help you write this? Because he's a good author. He's like experienced,
Yeah,
and I'm probably like 14, 15 at the time. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so
yeah,
I remember a really like cool experience from that time was, I had the idea for this show when I was like 12, and maybe 3 years later, like after that, um, dad said like, let me like try to like novelize some of this. And so I just remember I had this like big opening scene that was very like reminiscent of like a fantasy movie or like an Indiana Jones type of thing. It was like a involved like a it didn't survive into the final version of Jack Zulu, but it was like this opening with like a big villain, and he was like fighting these people, and he had like this glowing orb that he was trying to get to. And anyway, I'd been seeing this in my head for years, and it was like the first scene of the what I wanted the show to be. And I remember I emailed it to my dad, like the script and everything, and he like sent me back a novelized version of it, and it was the first
Whoa.
like it was like a chapter of the book, and I was like, oh man, like this is like real, like this could be, it's not the ideal or like the ultimate format that I want this to
Yeah.
be, and I want it to be visual someday, but like reading it in novel format was like so cool. And it was like, seeing it from his perspective and like with his like um his creative like excellence and his like him being a good writer, it was like really, it's one thing if you have these like ideas in your head, you might think it's cool or whatever, but to like see it become real was like
Yes.
super super cool. And so we started collaborating, and he would novelize a section of it and send it to, or like write it in like a format that makes sense for a book, not like my like notes that I jotted down for a screenplay. And we just went back and forth like that. He would send me a chapter, and I would give him notes, and he'd edit and write more, and eventually we came up with the book.
Dude, you light up when you tell that story, bro. Like, you light up,
That's
right?
cool.
It's cool. It's cool to see.
Mm,
Um, right? Because what you're describing is this moment where you had something and it became something. You had something,
mm,
but there's that moment where it crosses a threshold
yeah.
into feeling real, like this could actually be a thing, and your dad helped you cross that barrier and that boundary. And that
Mm,
boundary can be infinite. Many people die with it never having crossed the plane.
sure.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, and that's like so like that's cool that you say that, because it is like such a, I owe such a big, like a big debt of gratitude to my dad for that, because he really um gave me like a platform to do something that is something that I've dreamed about. So that's so cool.
Dude, big shout out and holler to Sam
Hmm.
as a dad with a son who's a writer and daughters who are creatives.
Yeah.
Like I I long to be that for my kids, and I think I am, right? Which is like their number one advocate, and then to use whatever compiled experience and resources I have to help accelerate them down their path
Yeah.
faster than they could do it themselves, right? Like
Mm,
to I don't know. And your dad did that for you, man. Like
yeah, yeah.
he but he saw something. He saw
Sure.
something first.
Yeah, and that's just so cool. I feel like I can see you doing that, like with your family, your children, like excuse me, even in just giving this like them this terminology of like the superhero, the superpower
Yeah.
stuff, and like that's it's cool to hear them talk about that and to have like a framework of understanding their identity and like growing into it. And so I think like I think you're right. Like I can see that from the outside, even like not knowing you terribly well, that you are doing that, and you are like giving them that platform to kind of like grow into themselves more. So kudos to you,
Dude,
man. That's really cool.
thank you so much, man. Yeah. The story, like the story you just told, gave me chills, man. It's because I don't know. I think it's because when I was a kid, I longed for somebody to put an arm around me
Mm,
and tell me I had potential and invest to make that potential real. Because I had this longing for greatness inside of me, but my environment was telling me you're nothing. You really are. And so I believed that for a long time. So
mm,
so like that's the stories when I hear, like your dad, he sees the potential, he sees what's in you, right? And
mm.
it's like, I'm gonna help you tease that out, cultivate that out
Yeah, and
into
that seems like that goes like deeply like hand in hand with like your personality as a connector too. Like it seems like,
Yep.
you know, you desire that, and like it's cool to see you like you know, providing that for other people that need that, like you feel yourself to like to connect people and to like
Yep.
give them a platform to like, you know, fulfill their potential or whatnot.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a lot of what I am now is what I wanted when I was a kid. So
Sure.
I wanted to be since I didn't have the person, right? Like I think about the benevolent upperclassmen, right? When you're in high school and you're awkward and you're a freshman, you're coming in,
Yeah.
and what would have meant if a senior had come and put his arm around you and said, "Look, you got what it takes, man. Like
Hmm.
before I leave, I'm gonna show you the ropes and I'm gonna get you so plugged in and on track." You know, like what would that have meant for what it would have meant everything to me
Mm.
for and so yeah, like I want to be that, like you obviously want to be that, right? The way that you loved all my kids. You draw out their story, you let my youngest daughter gets to tell you like a
Mm.
little draft of her story that she's working
Yeah.
on, and
Which
she's
sounds amazing, by the way. It really does. It sounds
that's
awesome.
cool. She
Yeah.
she never gonna forget that, dude. She's never
Yeah.
gonna forget that.
Mm. It's cool.
So yeah, man, just I have so much respect and admiration for your family, for you, for your dad,
Mm.
for this story that you just shared.
Mm.
Were there any challenges in trying to collaborate with your dad to write this book and get it out into the world?
There were like a normal amount of challenges, I would say. But it's like not super, I don't think about them very much because I feel like a surprising and defining characteristic of our collaboration has been a lack of any sort of real discord. I think,
Yeah.
you know, naturally, like the phrase "the apple doesn't fall far from the tree" I think would certainly apply to the relationship I have with my father. And so in a lot of ways, like we are cut from the same cloth, and I think
Yeah.
we have like different giftings and different capacities in some ways, but in terms of like the way that we see the world, we really like there's a lot of harmony there. And so I'll answer your question for real, but I will say we had a lot of like we were blessed with a lot of harmony in our collaboration. Probably the biggest challenges are just like normal ones of like it's hard to publish a book, like it's hard to get it out
Yes.
there.
Yes.
And one thing I would say is the audience that my dad and like his, you know, his brother and brother-in-law have kind of built through this like company of like publishing the Green Ember books. They were um the people who gave Jack Zulu a chance were super receptive to it and like very like positive. But I think the gap between like Green Ember fans and Jack Zulu fans was maybe in some ways bigger than we thought it would be. I
Yeah.
think it's like it's a bigger leap from like this is sort of the Green Ember series in some ways feels safer than the Jack Zulu story does because it's like rabbits, like it sort of disarms
Yep.
like a parent's like worries about what like content there may be. And so Jack Zulu just inherently
Yeah.
feels a little bit more mature. And so again, this is like
Interesting.
my like big
Yeah.
picture answer, but I will
Yeah.
say that's probably been one of the challenges of like just getting it out there, getting it to people is getting them to like feel comfortable with the story, you know.
Yeah. 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 That makes sense, man. Because yeah, yours is about humans. It's
Hmm.
about humans, and I'll tell you, you do get attached to those rabbits in Green
Sure.
Ember.
Yeah.
But as a parent, man, I hadn't even really put that together that there is a measure of safety when it's
Mm.
not actually humans that are getting killed, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah, feels like a
yeah,
little softer, a little more palatable. And two, like that's not like a criticism of the Green Ember audience. I love them, and I
no,
think all of that. I think that is like out of love, like the
yep,
parents have for their children is like wanting to like protect them from like, you know, content that might not be helpful for them at the time. So I think it's, you know, comes from a good place.
yeah. So we're a little bit over. Is it okay if I ask a few more questions, or
Yeah,
do you
for
have
sure,
a?
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious about you personally, what you know now about where you're going,
Hmm.
right? Like so I know college is it's a tall order for me to ask a young college man you know, what's your forever job going to be, you know? But can you tell me a little bit about the trajectory, where you're heading, and maybe even paint for me that picture of a beautiful future that you're
Hmm.
pointed towards?
Yeah, that's a really that's a good question too. I think it is like it's a little bit hard to answer, and I think it honestly like that's the question itself is a little bit like it's something that I think about a lot,
Yeah.
and most of the like anxieties I have in my life, I would say are like existential and kind of like
Yeah.
you know I've said it a million times, but like big picture. And so
Yeah.
I've kind of in my life recently tried to make more of an effort to experience it sounds a little corny to say, but like to experience the moments as they come and not
Yes.
the thing that Jesus said. I'm really bad with like scripture memory, but the thing that Jesus said about like tomorrow has enough anxiety for
Yeah.
itself, and so
Yeah.
like trusting in the Lord's sovereignty to tell this story like and like allow me to be a part of it with my life. All that to say, I am um hopefully going to graduate this spring with my bachelor's in multimedia communication. The big hang up there, I guess, will if anybody's listening to this in the future, they might know whether I graduated or not because I got this
Yeah.
chemistry class that's killing me. And if I don't pass chemistry, I don't graduate. So there's a chance I
Yeah.
might be taking a summer class or a class, this coming fall semester to kind of finish out my degree. But
Yeah.
yeah, I chose that degree because it was offered, and it was offered at this little liberal arts school that I attend called Concord University in just like super southern West Virginia. And yeah, so I feel like I'm rambling here, but
You're not. It's all clear.
I would love to pursue a career that has to do with storytelling and like
Yep.
whether that is writing, continuing to write or making music or making films. Those are all things that I'm like passionate about and I care about. And we talked a little bit about this, but I also just like my sort of something that maybe in the context of like careers and career paths and like big picture identity and calling maybe feels a little bit like mundane, but the biggest and like most ambitious thing that I feel like I like am desiring and like growing toward in my life like is to have a family of my own. And
Yep.
like you said, like if when you come from that and you like a family culture is like a big part of your experience growing up, I think it's sort of natural to want to continue that. And so that's definitely
Yeah.
like that's my biggest dream. I want to have a family, and I'd like to just be like a um a good like I want to go to church and be a good guy.
Yeah.
That's really what I want to do. So it's all sort of mixed in there with hopes and dreams and
Yep.
creativity and family and whatnot. But yeah, I hope to see all that in the future.
Yeah, dude. That is beautiful. First
Mm,
of all,
thank you.
it's beautiful. It's worthy. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
I'll tell you what. As a husband and a dad, um, you know, one of the greatest things in the world is to be called to be called dad,
Mm,
right? Like the most that I know about the Lord and how the Lord feels about me comes from me being a dad,
mm,
right? You know, when when I hold my kids or I hold my son in my arms and I smell his hair and I just love him and you know what I mean, and I feel that love coming out of
yeah.
me, and I'm like, God loves me like this. Like,
Mm,
can it really be that God loves me like wait a minute, not like this. Like this is a drop in the bucket of how
mm,
God feels about me. It helps me to start to actually begin to have an experience of that,
that's so.
right? Um, because I have a feelings context for it now suddenly. And so I just cheer you on, bro. Like it sounds to me like you have so much, you have more clarity than you think about
Mm,
the future,
sure.
right? Or that because what you basically told me is you want to tell really good stories,
Mm,
and the medium is maybe in flux a little bit, like the medium of the stories you don't necessarily know yet. You might tell them through music, you might tell them through writing, you might tell them through film, but you're going to tell good stories. And I know you will. I know you will because
Funny.
yeah, you've told an excellent story that I've got to actually partake of.
Mm. Well, you really you know how to make a guy feel really swell.
That's good, man. That's good. And I hope it's because I know it's because I think I see accurately. I listen. I got magic ears. I think I have magic ears. I think the Lord has given me magic ears. And so I hear you speak, but I hear your heart in what you say.
Wow.
And your soul in what you say. And I believe you. I believe what you're saying.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So I picture you, man, just, you'll enter into that journey, I trust, in fatherhood and husbandhood and story and giving what you have to the world. And I'm excited, bro. I'll be a fan. I will be a forever fan. Trust me. Of whatever comes, I'll be a fan.
Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, man. I feel like okay. My last question has to do more. So this might be something you don't know yet. But there's a movement happening with your dad, and you said your dad's brother and brother-in-law. So the organization.
Yeah.
First of all, tell me what the organization is. Right, Story Warren. What is it? Who's involved? How many people are involved? Give me a sense for scope there.
It's a publishing house, and that initially just published the Green Ember books, and then I'm actually not terribly certain on the other books that have been published. There's a great series called Tumbleweed Thompson by an author named Glenn McCarty. It's like a Americana story in the tradition of like Tom Sawyer or Mark Twain.
Yeah,
super super good. Love that guy. Love his series. Shout out Glenn McCarty. But. And I think there are other books in the works or being published. I know my dad's written a bunch. He's written the Green Ember series, and then the Found Boys, which is also fiction but not Green Ember related. It's a story set in America, sort of based on his childhood. And so yeah,
Mooses with Bazookas. Is that's out of there too? Yeah.
It's a classic.
That was so flipping fun, dude.
I love that. It's so my sense of humor and his too. But yeah, the full dude. I'm not actually positive how many full-time employees there are. It's also somewhat of a family affair. So when we have a big shipment of books to sign and to package and everything, we get the three families together, and we order Chick-fil-A for lunch, and we work through the day and everything, and it's great. It's cool to be a family business member.
So cool.
But I think Story Warren as a company has a real chance, a real opportunity, and has experience with sharing stories that bring light into the world and can kind of give people hope and perspective and beauty and all that stuff. So yeah, I think it's a really cool organization for sure.
So stories that bring light into the world. And I hear that, and then I hear what you've said kind of about what your future looks like. Does it appear to you that your future would go down that road, or do you think you're going to carve your own path? And I won't hold your feet to the fire for either answer, but
sure.
But as far as you can tell, does it you're gonna family business or going out on your own?
I don't know. I think my whole life will be family business. I love my family, and I do work for my dad. In a part-time capacity, and I don't know whether I don't know what the capacity of the company is in the future and what my life will look like. I'm kind of waiting on my time to come as far as discerning all that. But I'd love to work with my dad. He's one of my best friends, and we have worked together in the past on the books, and we are continuing to do that in the Jack Zulu sandbox. And so yeah, it's been a joy, and I think in any capacity that it makes sense to do that, I would love to. And also, I just remembered the Story Warren's tagline, or like their like mission statement, or no, I guess it is a tagline. It's they say Story Warren, allies in imagination. So that's
Mm,
their moniker. That's I think says their mission better than I said in any way, is that they
yeah,
are they're allies in imagination. So
yeah, man.
so yeah, I don't know. I guess, you know, I think did I answer your question?
You totally answered my question. Yeah, I wasn't trying to get super concrete. I'm
Sure.
trying to get impression of
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
see, because there's obviously so much synergy in what you're trying to do in the world and what your dad is doing in the world and what you've
Mm,
done already in collaboration with your dad in the world.
yeah.
And so, it's just inquiring minds want to know.
Hmm.
Uh, um, Man, this has been so fun. We're gonna close up at this point. I mean, I feel like I could spend another hour with you, man, and we may need to do a check in or a snapshot down the road.
For sure.
Um, but y'all, this is one to watch. Like talented, creative, um, you know, grounded, wise individual. Um, and I'm just, I don't know. I'm just proud of you, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
Mm.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
well,
it. Yeah,
likewise, man, and I really appreciate you having me on and just this conversation. And anytime you make your way out east here to Southern West Virginia, shoot me an email and let's get together. Let's get coffee or something.
dude, that would be amazing, man. It maybe, yeah. You probably would have to come with me if I were to do that. Yeah.
And I gotta
All right.
read. I gotta read. To Love a Dragon. Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
When that comes out, I'd love a copy.
Thank you.
Yeah, sounds good. You will be first on the list, my friend.
Awesome.
All right. Well, hey, it's a great meeting with you and everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.
See ya.